Hello, seventh grade science teacher, my favorite grade of science teachers. Don't tell anybody else. Today, we're going to walk through our seventh grade scope and sequence brief overview over what this document looks like, how I view you using it. So let's go ahead and get this screen shared so you guys can see what I'm seeing, which is hopefully the scope and sequence. So this document, I view you guys using as a way to plan out and think about your whole year. Make sure that your concepts are aligning and you're bringing discussions back in. It's not your day-to-day, week-to-week sort of document. That's going to be your curriculum maps. Video on those are further along. But this kind of helps plan it out. But it does have some good links and resources, so we'll go through it so that way you know how to use it a little bit better in your planning out for your year. First thing I want to highlight is I created these so that they are one-pagers. But when you print those out, they're kind of small, or even on this screen right now, you might think it's a small font. That's what I thought. So I also created a larger print font. If you double click on this image up here, you should see this, and this broke it down into 2 pages, increased the font by a few sizes. And so now page 1 is semester 1, page 2 is semester 2. And so that's how you'll be able to better view it. Or if you print it out, this might be a better way to print it front back. And that way it's a bit easier to read. So seventh grade starts off with matter and how that's all around. And then it talks about matter cycles and energy flows. You move on to shaping Earth's resources and ecosystems and sustaining ecosystems. Discovery is really at tying in concepts that flow naturally into each other. So hopefully this conversation about matter, starting off the beginning, comes into play throughout the rest of the year. That's what we're hoping for. So we're just going to go top down. I'll show you guys just kind of like one quarter, how you move through. It's the same in each one. Pretty straightforward. And then hopefully that will help you navigate things a little better. So first is the link straight to the curriculum map. Seventh grade is great because it perfectly lines up with the quarters, each unit. If you're hitting through at a pretty good pace, you should be fine there. So this will take you right to the curriculum map. I got videos on those later. We'll open that one later. Next up is the pacing. Now, these pacings are based on Discovery Ed, what they say should take place in their order of lessons. You may be digging in deep and taking longer. You may be breezing through stuff and you are ahead. But hopefully this kind of tells you where you're at in terms of that. So that way, if you are ahead, that tells you you're able to dive deeper, do a project, do some more review. And if you're falling behind, according to this pacing, okay, what are some things that I can cut out in the future to make sure that we get caught up and cover all 3 of these? Our unit test, which will probably be linked to these here at the start of the year, but those are quarter tests. So right here at the end of quarter 1, that's where the first, what they'll call unit or quarter test will be. And that covers these first 3 concepts. Basically this first unit. I've designed those unit tests so that there's less questions in this last concept and more in these 2, just in case, because I know pacing wise, people tend to always be slightly behind. So I didn't want to punish the students because that's just how it naturally happens. And so most of the questions will come from these 2, but there are still some questions from there. And all of our quarter tests, I made 20 questions, no matter what grade you're in. All right, moving down, you got the essential unit. So these are the units that you'll be teaching. If you wanted to dig into a bit more, I'll go ahead and open up one of these particles and states of matter. This takes you straight to the intro page of Discovery Ed. I'll have a whole separate navigating Discovery Ed, what things look like. But this is where I get the question. Now we'll go back to in just a second, but this kind of intros this concept. You don't have to worry about coming here to look all this over. I've actually pulled a lot of this material and built it into the curriculum map. So hopefully that makes things a bit easier on you and just flows more naturally. But that's where it'll take you. So if you are good at navigating Discovery Ed, you can jump to all your activities right here. Let's jump back. And that's where the essential question came from, was from that intro page. So this first one is, how can particle interactions explain the properties and behavior of dry ice? We don't need a capital P there. Lowercase. Oh, it did not. That is the wrong keyboard. There we are. So what's great is you're using dry ice to kind of help students understand matter in a different way. And so if you can definitely do a lab that incorporates dry ice in the classroom, kids are going to get it. Proficiency scales. This is something that was created a couple of years back by somebody else. They can be useful. I won't be updating, modifying these at all, but I thought that the language in here, standard alignment, how you assess students being at success levels or going above and beyond could be useful. So if you're used to using those, they're still here, still available. I won't be messing with those too much. You got your standards. If you like to break down standards and really dive into it, I do have the standard breakdown here. This way you don't have to go find the standards in that long document from DESE. It takes you as just the pages related to that standard so you can look at the breakdowns. Moving on from there, you got your performance tasks. These are actually really cool. These are part of Discovery Ed. But when you're at the end of a concept and maybe you got some students who did a really good job, they're getting it, you want them to push them a little bit further. These take all of their learning from that one concept, and then it ties it into a real world situation. They got to watch video, read some text, view some images, and then they have questions that kind of relate to it. So, and these are kind of higher order questions, and they're a bit more difficult, but this kind of pushes and engages students, and they're learning a lot more. And it's more than just the multiple choice questions that we typically will have. So either you can assign this for students as an extension activity, build this into some sort of classroom or lab-based activity for learning, but these are kind of cool. Most of the time there's one, but you can see sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 different ones. It's probably not something that you'll be able to get to every concept, but I think they're pretty cool and useful to look into. Spanish versions are also available if that pertains to you. And finally, you got the assessments. Each concept comes with practice assessments. I would say those are typically lower DOK difficulty questions, typically more multiple choice based, just to get the kids used to what concepts they're dealing with. And then you have the summative assessment. Now, these are important to look through as before you get into the actual concepts, because we don't want to teach to the test, but we want to teach towards the test. So what's the language going on in these type of questions? And what is the concept driving the students to mastery? And these are questions. This is actually where I went for the quarter test, and I pulled questions from here. So like, for example, this question, if you go view the unit test, quarter test, you'll see this question. I've pulled questions from Discovery Ed, from these summative and practice tests. And so if you incorporate these into do nows or assign these for students to practice and review, they're going to be able to have a better practice before they get to the quarter test. It also helps you with what's the language that I need to be using, what's the vocab that's used, what are the high tested concepts and skills. And I think that's really useful to look at prior to going forward. I did not include any question that's outside of multiple choice for the quarter test, just because Illuminate struggles. So it's all multiple choice. I think I put in a couple multiple selects. If I did a multiple select, I told the students how many to select, but there's only 1, maybe 2 of those. And so that is the scope and sequence. It kind of just repeats that same pattern as you move along. So definitely a good planning tool for looking at the year as a whole. How are things all connected, tied together? What's coming up next? How can we call back to some of the learnings that we've done before? And hopefully that this is a great resource for you guys as you're planning. And we want this to be super useful for our students to get engaged and learning. So we don't make this video too long. Let me end it here, and I'll see you guys in the next training video.